I've got some active starter here. Let's make some sourdough. Before I begin though, let me explain how I got here. So I actually got my original starter from a neighbor in my local Buy Nothing group, and she gave me just a little bit of active starter right from the get-go, and she gave me a secret right from the beginning, that I didn't need to leave it on my counter all the time. I keep my starter in the fridge all the time and just take out what I need and feed it to get it active, just what I need for the recipe. And then I have my starter all the time in the fridge, safe and sound, lasts forever. Not forever, but it lasts a long time. So to start here, I took the recipe from Little Spoon Farm website for their basic sourdough. She gives great tips on just simple ways to get started, and so far it hasn't broken, so I might as well stick with what's working, right? So to start off, I just took, it was 10 grams of my inactive starter, 25 grams of water, 25 grams of flour, and let this sit basically like anywhere between 8 and 12 hours. It got all bubbly, rose up over double, and now I'm ready to use it. So the only other things I'm going to need for just the basic sourdough dough, I've got my active starter, I have some bread flour, and water, and the biggest bowl that I have, which happens to be a Jelly Time popcorn bowl. Thanks, Mom. So what we're going to do is get my handy dandy scale out and set my bowl on it, because the best way to make sure that your sourdough does what it's supposed to is by doing all your measurements by weight. I'm going to go ahead and double this recipe, but for the Little Spoon Farm recipe that I follow, she calls for 50 grams of active starter, so I'm going to go ahead and do 100. So I've got my scale on, it is tiered for my bowl, and we're going to go ahead and pour in 100 grams. Good and bubbly. What I like about the recipe that she has you follow is she always has you make just a little bit extra, because there will be some that sticks to the jar, and then you have a teeny bit of extra, but you always have enough for the recipe. Okay, just about. Okay, so I've got 100 grams there. I nearly forgot you'll also need some salt, but make sure it's not iodized. Make sure it's like sea salt or plain salt. The iodized salt messes with some of the chemical stuff that happens in the process. Don't use that. So I'm just going to use plain salt when I add my salt. Alright, so I've got my scale re-tiered again. I'm going to go ahead and add the bread flour. Make sure it's unbleached also, so that does not mess with any of the process. And we are going to be adding 1,000 because it calls for 500. So I'm doubling it. We're going to 1,000. Also, I normally add my water first, but I'm mixing it all together at once anyway, so it's okay. Okay, almost there. Very technical terms, I like to give it a little tappy tap when we're getting close. Almost. So close. Okay. Alright, and now, some water. I just use tap water. We don't have super chemically tap water, so it works for me. And for this recipe, it goes 350, doubling it, so I'm going for 700. I know this is going to be about a jar and 3/4 when I use this. Okay. Water is harder to take away than the flour is, so when you get close, go really, really, really slow. Some people will even go so far as to say do it like a teaspoon at a time, so you don't overdo it. I usually just go for it. So far I've been okay. Sometimes I go like a gram over. It's okay. So close. 700, perfect. Okay, and then the last thing is salt. We need 20 grams. It looks like a lot. It doesn't taste very salty, so. Okay, pro tip, take the bowl off of your scale before you mix, because you don't want to put a lot of extra pressure on it and break your scale. I've got one of these fancy whisks. I got it from Amazon. I use this to go ahead and get it most of the way mixed together, and then once it starts coming together into more of like a shaggy dough, then I actually just go in with my hands to finish it out. Get this mixed, and I'll come back when it's shaggy. Okay, so at this point right here is when I like to go ahead and just go in with my hands, so let me flip you around and show you what that looks like. Okay, so I like to go ahead and take the majority of this off of my whisk so I don't have any going to waste. And then go ahead and go in with my hands. So I'm just kind of going in, making sure that I got all the bits of dry flour off of the sides. Just kind of putting my hand under and pushing it into itself again, just to get it fully incorporated. Alright, she looks beautiful. A little bit gloopy at the moment, but what we're going to do next is we are going to let this rest for about an hour. I'm going to go ahead and cover it with a clean towel and just stick it on top of my stovetop. I actually have bread in the oven right now, so it'll be plenty warm, and that should help let it just kind of settle into itself, and then we will start some stretch and folds. I'll show you that next. Okay, so I've got my bowl here, as you can see, and now I'm going to wet my hands just a little bit, and reach down into the bowl, kind of pick up from the edge, the farthest edge from me. I'm going to pick it up, stretch it up. It'll have a lot of give this first time around. And then I just lay it back down on top of itself. I'm going to do a quarter turn on the bowl. Repeat that again, grabbing from the far edge, lifting it up as far as it will go. Again, that was a quarter turn. Starts to get a little tighter here. Give it a little wiggle. And on top of itself, and one more turn. And on itself. Okay, we're gonna put the towel back on it and wait another half hour and do it again. Alright, now I'm putting the towel back on here, and it's going to sit on my countertop overnight for really anywhere between like 8 to 10 hours about. We don't want it to quite double in size, a little bit less than that, and then we will get ready to shape it and bake it. So I added some flour to my surface, and I removed the dough from the bowl. I added just a little bit more flour on top, just so that I could use my dough cutter to separate the dough. Rolled just the plain one up into itself, and then did some pulling and tucking kind of in a candy cane shape to help form that first loaf. Then I've got the second piece of bread dough. I'm spreading it out into a large rectangle shape, adding some brown sugar on top and some apple pie spice. I folded it trifold onto itself, added some more brown sugar and that spice, tuck it in together, and then back into that kind of candy cane J shape to tuck it into itself. I use this as often as I can. This is my Dutch oven. It has the lid that goes on top of it, but I only have one, so I usually do my second loaf in this. But I have the parchment paper underneath, and I cover it with foil so that I can keep the steam. So I went ahead and put those containers into the oven now to go ahead and start preheating, and then we will get the loaves prepped. All right, we're going to start with the regular. Just got my parchment paper out here. And I'm going to take my bread lump here. It's got a little dough stuck to it, but it's just the same thing over and over again. Nice sharp razor blade. Now we are going to run this kind of at it's almost flat, a slight angle on it, right along the side here.
I got the food.
I don't need a spoon, honey.
I got the food.
Sometimes I go over it a couple times just to make it nice and deep there. And then I do another one over on this side. This is more so just decorative. Okay. And then that one is going to go directly on the parchment into my baking vessel. Same thing with the cinnamon one. Go ahead and slice down the side. This one's holding together a bit better. That'll be a nice thing there. And then going this way, kind of making a little wheat flour and wheat stem image there. Alright, and again, this is going to be put to the side. Now once my oven is preheated and the containers are all preheated as well, I will go ahead and stick those in for 20 minutes covered, and then an additional 25 minutes uncovered. So yummy.